Here at Eccentric Earth, we like to pick topics that are not only interesting to hear about, but are relatively unknown. But, as is often the case with history, there's a lot that we can learn about it that relates to our world today. And this can quite often lead to long discussions on a myriad of topics after the main show is done. Here's some of the after-show discussion from episode 37, The Beast of Jersey, that we found to be interesting and worthy of being shared, and we hope that you enjoy it.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
I have a dream. One day, this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal.
The world will little note no longer remember what we saved, but it can never forget what they did.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Yeah, there's some dark stuff on Jersey, which, considering how small it is it's quite shocking.
But then you end up, I can't remember, there's that small community, that island community that had that paedophile sex ring, and they basically, like, all the kids in the village were, like, every single person in the village was part of this abuse cult, and they were just abusing kids.
Yeah,
and it's like, you know, it's always the whole sort of like paedophilia thing. You know, having no skin in the game myself, you know, I don't have kids. Doesn't mean that I, you know, think they're fair game or anything like that. But from what I have, from the discussions I've had, the discussions with people who don't have kids are very different to the discussions with people who do have kids. Pedophilia is a sexual orientation. If you can't help being homosexual, which you can't, then you also can't help being a paedophile, which a lot of people don't want to hear. But to me, it's not the sexual, you know, whilst if you are homosexual and therefore you want to have sex with somebody else who is consensually wanting to have sex with you, then that is fine. The problem with having the orientation of a paedophile is that in order to gain sexual relief, it is a crime. It is non-consensual. It is abuse. It is traumatic. It is all those things. Therefore, it has become a choice, which is weird because it's the homophobic rhetoric from like 10, 15 years ago. That's like, okay, well, homosexuality is not a choice, but you can choose whether to act on that behaviour. And that's sort of like, that's where it is to me with paedophilia. You know, I can't imagine anybody in the world would choose to be attracted to children. And there are some very, very interesting articles out there written by people who are sexually attracted to children, but, you know, do not act on those urges because they understand, you know, how morally reprehensible it is to have sex with a child.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he's from a sort of like, you know, mental health perspective, he obviously does have sexual attraction to children, because obviously, you know, rape can very much be about power and not about sex.
Yeah.
However, he had the nous to know that if he wanted, I'm sorry to say it like that, but he knew that he had very, very easy access to a whole range of children at home. And so therefore he altered his methods to avoid any suspicion landing on him, if you see what I mean. You know, he wasn't violent towards the kids. He made sure he subdued them with chloroform, because if boys at the house had suddenly started being attacked in the same way as boys out the house, then they're going to start looking at the people who have access to the house. I don't know where I'm going with this.
That's fine. If you don't know where you're going, you don't know where you're going.
I think it's an interesting one, because again, I have very strong feelings about prison, and now is not the time to go into all those, not least because my brain's starting to fail. But yeah, I think if there is no level of remorse, I mean, like, because there are people that say I am not guilty, and then there are people that are guilty but are saying they're not guilty. There are people who aren't guilty who are saying that they are not guilty, and there's far too many of them than there should be. And then there's the people who say they're guilty and they don't give a fuck. And I think if you're guilty of something that is a ruination or a termination of somebody's life as child, I'm not saying that nobody can recover from child rape. I'm saying that is going to be with you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, you're never going to be unaffected by it.
You're always going to be affected by it in some way, even if you heal from it and whatever, it's still going to be a part of your life. That still did happen to you.
Yeah.
I think in those sorts of respects, then letting somebody out early for good behaviour when they have shown. I mean, I don't know what it is in this country, but I know in America, you have to say you're guilty and show remorse to get let out of prison early.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of like, it's weird because then it just encourages people to lie to get out of prison.
Yeah.
But I think there has to be some level of, there should be some privations to prison. It should be a punishment for committing a crime. It should also be an effort at rehabilitation. But some people don't see what they've done as wrong. Some people have mental illnesses and they shouldn't be in prison anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And some people will reoffend when they get out because for them it's a need and they don't give a fuck who they hurt in order to satisfy that need.
It's like Paynell didn't, as far as we're aware, reoffend, but is that because he died? Like, we know he spent years planning and stuff, so could he have been in the process of doing that again, but then his heart attack took him out?
I hate to be cynical as well, but the accessibility of child pornography was entirely much better in 1992 than it was when he went to prison in 1971.
Yeah.
The internet was now available. You could get books, you could get things on mail order. It's one of those weird things that back before the internet, one of the main sources for paedophiles to use to get pictures of children was Germany, because Germany was very into naturism. And so there were a number of naturist publications that had nude people of all ages, all genders. And these were circulated among paedophile groups because that was pictures of naked children. And that was actually, a fairly good method of harm reduction. And it's one of those weird things that as we have become more aware of paedophiles, we have taken away all the possible things that could possibly be harm reduction for them. Because, and another thing that you can't say to people with kids, would you prefer a paedophile masturbated to a picture of your child or attacked your child?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I don't want them doing that. No, you don't want them doing that. But if it was a choice.
I know something they do in Japan. I'm going to look at the term.
No, they've stopped it. You're talking about the underage porn, and the drawn porn.
Yeah, the
drawn. Yeah, no, that became illegal about 2 years ago or so. They started really cracking down on it and stopped, and underage cartoon porn stopped being legal in Japan. Pretty sure.
Because I know there's all these different types of categories of hentai, and there was one that it looks like it's even been removed from Wikipedia on the hentai article, but
I've just found there we go in Japan. Oh, okay. No, I mean I don't know I don't know when the changelog was in the. Oh no, okay. There's one on September 2018. Okay, no, it is still legal in Japan. I do apologise.
Okay.
Lolicon or Shotacon.
That was Lolicon. Yeah, I was trying to think of the name. But yeah, and whilst you're depicting child porn, it's not real. It's drawings. It's not. No child is being abused by it, and paedophiles can use that as, like you said, like harm reduction. They can sit at home and look at those pictures, watch those animations, and is that not better than them going out and abusing a child?
Mm-hmm.
But some people are just straight up like, well, no, it depicts a child engaging in sex, even though it's not a real child. It still counts, and it shouldn't be done. It's like, well, I can understand your point, but at the same time, I think you're kind of wrong. I think if it's gonna stop paedophiles actually going out and accessing real child porn in which it needs a real child to be abused, surely it's a good thing. But it's a difficult subject. You can't. I think it's a very heated debate, and I don't think the people who are against it are going to budge from their position.
I had a really interesting idea for a novel based on the idea of a young psychologist who gets involved with somebody who comes to her for help because he has sexual urges for young kids and he doesn't want to commit crime. And the psychologist gets their child, like ends up sort of taking semi-pornographic images of her own child in order to give them to their client as harm reduction. That was my idea. And then lots of people came to me and went, nobody is ever going to publish that. And I went, oh, good point.
Well, self-publication is much easier now.
That's true. Right. This is actually a quite funny fact that I'd actually completely forgotten about until just now when I was looking at Lolicon and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to find the actual full-on details so I can quote it. Where are we? Yeah, Australia. Pornography in Australia.
Oh, I think I know what you're about to say about Australia. That
in Australia, you cannot work in pornography if you have breasts smaller than a certain size due to child pornography laws.
Yep, flat-chested women
Flat-chested women are not allowed to do porn in Australia because they could look like children.
Yep.
Which is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. And again, you see that so much online as well, where it's someone who you know is in like their 20s, but they look young. They're very small, like physically, like slim, short, flat-chested, and they act in porn movies where they're portraying someone who's supposed to be a teenager. And again, is that a bad thing? Because it's someone who isn't a child who can be performing harm reduction for a paedophile? Is it, you know, I can't help but feel that, okay, it might not be your taste to see someone who, yeah, to look at, you would think they look 14, 15, and they're having hardcore sex, but it might be what someone else is into, and at least you know they're not, and it's not a child being abused or anything like that. It's someone who's okay with it, enjoys it, and is getting paid for that service. So where's the harm? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. But then we're getting onto the sort of like, you know, how pornography is viewed and
yeah, which is a whole different area.
Which is again, this is part of our new podcast, Amy and Han's discussion hour.
I'm sure there's going to be some comments on this section of the podcast because, yeah, people get very heated in this area, I think.
Yeah, people do, and I think that the one point that both of us are trying to make is we think it is an absolutely heinous act to rape a child. However, you cannot help who you are sexually attracted to. So if we're going to help harm reduction, just as we allow heroin users access to clean needles and things like that, to enable a victimless crime, jerking in your own house, victimless crime for every one of us, no matter what our sexual orientation, then surely that's a better solution. It's not going to stop kids getting raped. It's not going to stop kids getting abducted. Unfortunately, nothing can stop those things happening. We're talking about not harm prevention, because that doesn't exist, but harm reduction.
Yeah. It's not going to eliminate children being assaulted by paedophiles, but if it stops that one paedophile from doing it to kids, surely it's worth it.
Yeah, someone needs to look into the actual statistics. It would be very interesting. When I say statistics, I mean like, you know, you would have to, I'm wondering, it would have to be like I guess it would have to be like a self-identified somebody who was sexually attracted to children, or self-identified somebody who had a very, very strong, not just a fantasy, but like a real life inclination to, say, you know, violently attack and rape a woman, but knew that it was morally reprehensible and so would never act on it. Whether watching porn that catered to that fantasy actually helps or hinders. Because it might be, you know, it might be the opposite. It might be that having access to this just kind of like makes you want to do it more. I don't think so, because otherwise horror movies would make us all serial killers.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah. The last thing I'll sort of say on this is a couple of years ago now, a friend of mine got into a discussion with me on this topic, and he's saying that he knew someone who, I think he knew them through the internet, who told him that he was a paedophile. He was attracted to kids. He had these urges. He had never acted on it. Never intends to act on it because he knows it's wrong. But the simple fact that he has these attractions and urges is horrific for him. It tears him apart inside, and he, I think that's one of the things people never really think about is, oh, you're a paedophile, you're sick, you're twisted. For those people who are and never do anything but have to live with that, it's got to be one of the most horrific things. And I think it's a subject that should be explored in more than just you're a monster, you should be locked away kind of attitude.
Yeah, I think anybody who acts on their instincts has every right to deserve the epithet "you're an animal, you're a monster."
Yes.
Because there is no excuse.
Yeah, and we're not in any way excusing people who do that. I think if you harm a child in any way, but especially in a sexual way, you're not a human anymore. You've lost your rights. You're a monster. But if you have those urges but don't, you should be given a level of sympathy and help.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a really interesting article from a guy who was a paedophile who had determined never to act on his urges. And he said that he did what in his early 20s, he watched child pornography. And because of where you have to go to find child pornography, you're with a group of people that very quickly normalize it and sort of almost falsely trick you into saying that these aren't victims. You are watching people enjoying sex and it doesn't matter that they're children and that it should be okay. And he said that it was such a toxic environment that when he realized that he was actually doing harm by even viewing this content, because, you can, that's it's one of those things. It's like, I'm not anti-porn, I'm anti-non-ethical porn. And so it's like, you can choose what to watch, and there is some porn that is incredibly or some porn people who create porn who are like, yeah, okay, no, I'm not going to watch stuff made by you because of things I've read and stuff. But it would be very easy to go, I'm not causing this victimization, I'm not personally degrading these people or doing this, that and the other. I'm thinking specifically of Max Hardcore. I don't know if you heard about him. He was actually done because he was drugging, it was rape because he was drugging them and doing things that they hadn't consented to.
Jesus.
And you could watch that and feel like it's not a victim if you didn't know that. And even if you did know, you'd be like, well, I'm not contributing to this woman's distress, I'm not contributing to this by watching it. But he came to the conclusion that he wasn't blameless by watching this content, and not only was he not blameless, he was in an environment where people were encouraging him to go out and rape children because it was normal, and that's not good. So he doesn't have any sexual outlet apart from heterosexual porn where people look like where women dress up as cheerleaders or schoolgirls or whatever, which is somehow not paedophilia. That's fine. It's absolutely okay to watch porn with somebody dressed as somebody who's only 15.
Yeah, that goes into a whole other area of
the amount
of straight guys who have a thing for schoolgirls and get their girlfriends to dress up in schoolgirl outfits and stuff, and how that's really not okay. And I just saw something earlier today, 1/3 of all underage girls who report they've been sexually assaulted said it happened whilst they were in their school uniform. So, that's not good.
No. There's one of my favourite authors is a guy called Tom Robbins, and he writes these beautiful, they're mostly beautifully silly, but they have hidden treasures of philosophy and things in them, and they're beautifully written as well. And I don't know if you've ever seen or heard of the movie Even Cowgirls Get the Blues.
No.
That's based on a novel by his. That's the first Tom Robbins novel I read. And one of his books, which is called Fierce Invalids Home from Hot Climates, one of the guys is having a discussion about teenage girls. And he's saying the thing is that, and this is the thing, is that we are biologically programmed to find young women attractive, because our primal brain tells us that they are fertile and yada yada yada, and that, so our brain can't tell the difference between a 12-year-old who has reached puberty and a 16-year-old who has reached puberty. Our brain can't tell the difference, so it therefore becomes up to our higher selves, our actual civilized selves, to know when to say no, I shouldn't do that because of their age. And that age has to be arbitrarily decided by lawmakers from a legal, but from a moral perspective, it's an arbitrary line, and there are definitely some 16-year-olds who aren't ready to have sex, and it's part of the problem of our lizard brains. We've become civilized too quick, and we still have lizard brains, which is why it is up to everybody to turn around and say, and when men go, oh, we can't help ourselves, and go, no, we understand the biological imperative. We also understand that you are a rational human being that knows right from wrong. That's what you don't get. It is not up to me to stop you doing wrong. It is up to you to say, no, touching this person's breast is wrong, or doing X, Y, and Z is wrong. That's funny how most people can manage to do that for everybody apart from women. They don't go, oh, well, the DVD was just sitting on the shelf, so I stole it.
I knew we'd end up having this kind of discussion when I selected this topic for you, because I know you have strong opinions on mental health, prisons, sex, porn, all these kind of, all these things that kind of come together.
I'm so angry this entire week anyway,
Well, I didn't know
because
that
of... Well, yeah, I mean, how could you not be absolutely angered and disgusted? Not only by the fucking farce that went on within government, but the people who are defending and obfuscating and not believing. Have you heard? There's now a. I hope again that it's one of these, like, it's only in very small corners of the internet that it's trending, but a thing called Him Too. And it's already had its first, I'm going to use the word casualty. So there was a minor Twitter celebrity who posted a picture of her son, who's in the Navy.
Oh, yeah, I saw
that. He doesn't date on his own because he's worried of rape accusations. And then he came out and went, nope, I believe women, I believe survivors. Take that down, mother, right fucking now. I am not the poster child for your stupidity. Can you? Oh my God, I would have been so angry. And I've had the same argument so many times this week about false accusations and blah blah blah, and I've had to trot out the statistics. So because that's what I did, because the first thing I did, because this is the thing, because 2 weeks ago I was listening to Sarah Pascoe's audiobook, and she has a whole chapter about rape that is really, really interesting, and she goes into a fair amount of like statistics and stuff, and and she goes into like why victims are blamed in rape trials, and burden of proof and all, and the sort of like the legal ramifications of that. It's very, very interesting. And she talks about how the incidence of false reporting of rape is exactly the same as the incidence of false reporting for every other crime. And yet it's only rape where victims aren't believed. It's only ever rape where anybody is at all questioned when they say they've been a victim of a crime.
Yeah.
And it's the only crime where people say, oh, well, there's so many false accusations, how can we be sure this is true? And I've just been like all over the place going, where's your statistics to say that false accusations have risen? Where's your statistics? Oh, did you know that, false accusation rates are the same for every single crime? And yet, with rape, it's the only one. And there's actually a very, very good wiki article on false reports of rape, and it's got all the source material for it. So I've been reading a fuck ton of that this week, digging through reports and finding numbers and working out why there's discrepancies and doing all that. Not that it's made any difference, but...
Well, I would say hopefully we learn from history, but as we see on this show time and time again, not so much. So yeah, that's how we're going to end this, on a really down note, guys. So, because I'm not sure how we can spin back round to happy.
I do think that there is no getting around it. That protesting isn't working, marching isn't working. We can try vote. I say we. I mean America, right? I mean America, right this second. You can try voting in November. I hope to God that it makes a fucking difference, that we actually shift some balance of power. But it's not like Democrats are without their own issues regarding power. And do you know what I mean? I feel like the Democrats don't lie and are so transparently awful as Republicans. But they're just as power hungry, and they're just as beholden to lobbyists and special interests and corporate interests as the Republicans are.
Mm.
And yeah, I don't know how America is going to dig their way out, especially because Trump has such a hold on his followers, where he is, enacting the just transparently lying on Twitter and then being called out for it, and knowing that his supporters are going to buy what he says above all else. Was it you that posted the compilation of dumb Trump supporters?
Yep.
Yes. Would you vote for him if he shot somebody on Fifth Avenue? Absolutely. Would you vote for him if he
Would you vote for him if there was pictures of him smoking crack?
Yeah.
Yeah. So why are you voting Trump? Because his name's not Hillary. Well, so's Bernie. Yeah, but he's a socialist. What does that mean? It's like...
Michelle's a man. What? Sorry. I had actually. That's an Alex Jones. That started with Alex Jones. You won't be surprised to hear.
Nope.
So yeah, riot, guys. It's.
I think it's the only thing that's gonna. Yeah.
Well,
America's gonna riot. I don't think there's any way around it. I wouldn't be surprised if there's another civil war.
Yeah, there's going to be. Yeah, I would not be surprised at all. But the scary thing is that if it comes down to it, the right have far more weaponry and are going to be far less worried about using it. Because this is the thing. If you are, I read this again. I do apologize if it's you that posted it. But it's like, if you're an anti-fascist and you see somebody behaving or an outright rally, and you feel like it's your civil duty to stop that person protesting and do what will you do? You will tell them, you will chase them off, and you'll tell them to go home. You're not then going to follow them home and put a bullet in their head for being your political enemy. Whereas if you are a political enemy, if you are an enemy of fascism, of the outright, they want you all dead. They have no interest in being civil. They have absolutely no interest in being civil. The only good trans person, the only good gay person, the only good black person is a dead trans gay black person in their eyes. And that's not.
Fuck civility and all that bullshit, because you're never going to get it back. Don't go completely down to their level, but get close to it. Because they're not going to give you a chance. Why give them one?
Yeah, absolutely. And the rampant transphobia that's been on the Stop Funding Hate page and group, to the extent where loads and loads of TERFs got banned for being like blatantly transphobic. So then they did the fucking fucked up, sneaky bullshit of I'm just talking about legitimate concerns for women. I just want to have a discussion because I'm legitimately concerned that a sex offender was allowed to offend 4 times in a prison. This is about women's safety. And it's like, but no, you're not talking about women's safety. You're not talking about that. You have absolutely no idea how many cis women in prison get raped by cis women in prison. You have no idea. You are only concerned that it was a trans woman that did the raping, not that women prisoners are getting raped.
Mm-hmm.
That is your only concern. But they're doing it in like this snide, I'm just trying to have a discussion way. So loads of them got banned from the page, and then there's a closed group as well, and a number of them have been banned from the group. So they've gone on to the recommendations and started putting all their shit on the recommendations, giving them 1 star and doing all this shit. And it's like, there's only so many times I can comment the same things, which is like, 1, I hate to break it to you, but cis women are getting raped by cis women in prison all the time. Where's your outrage about that? 2, what was the other one? It's like, whenever I hear, I'm not a TERF, I just have a worry about women's safety, and their arguments are, trans women have called for violence against cis women, and what's your evidence for that? Oh, this one trans person who did an art exhibition that featured a bloody shirt that said "I punched TERFs." So you've got one example for that.
But again, that ties into your Nazi thing of TERFs want trans people gone. So yeah, fuck
absolutely,
TERFs.
yeah.
Fuck TERFs.
Yeah. We want trans women not to be in women's prisons because a trans prisoner raped a female prisoner. Well, no, that's like saying that female rapists shouldn't be in prison with female prisoners. As far as I'm concerned, that's legitimate. So a female rapist should be in prison with men. Would you be happy with that? I fucking doubt it. And then the third one was some obfuscation of safe spaces. And that was because, and the article that they point to for that is a cis woman complained about sharing a bathroom with a trans woman in a hostel. And those are the only three. It's like you purport these three things, and then you give 3 people out of 7 billion who have done those things and say there is a concern for women's safety. If there was a legitimate concern for women's safety as regard, it's like, no, don't even pretend you have legitimate concerns. Don't couch it and make more cis women scared. At least be honest with your fucking hate, and honest that you don't have any evidence, that you don't have any logic, that it is just that you fear trans people and you want them gone.
Yeah. If you're a transphobe, if you're a racist, anti-Semite, whatever you are, I'm going to hate you no matter what. But if you turn around and be like, yeah, I'm a racist, rather than, oh no, I'm not racist, but this, or I'm not homophobic, but that, I'm going to have a little bit more respect for the people who are open and honest about it, because at least they're not being an extra level of cunt.
Because if you said, oh my gosh, I've just found out that a black man raped a white man in prison, therefore black men shouldn't be allowed in male prisons anymore. That's exactly the same. That's, it's like, stop trying to pretend that you give a fuck. Stop trying to pretend. Stop leveraging victims, because that's what you're doing. You are pretending to give a fuck about a victim or even a potential victim, and it's as an excuse for your hate. If you hate people, then just be out and hate people, because I'm going to hate you anyway. You still there?
Yeah.
Sorry, have I depressed you more with my anger?
No, I was already, I knew all this. The world's fucking broken and awful, but yeah.
I was already depressed.
Yeah. I think maybe we should wrap this up though, because, we finished talking about the Beast of Jersey about 45 minutes ago. So
Really?
The poor listeners, we just ranted at them.
That's why I'm not a good person to have on, because I just get very ranty. Very angry about things.
Well, if they enjoyed it, your ranty anger, and want to see more of your outrage and hate for these bastards, where can they find you online?
Well, I don't really do written rants. It's something that I've considered. I try not to get that angry when I'm actually online, and I'm generally civil to everyone, no matter what their point of view, because I don't see it as ever changing their mind, but I want to give the facts back, so that people who are on the fence might have their mind changed by actually having the facts shouted back. Do you see what I mean?
Mm.
Rather than going on the comments and going, you're a TERF piece of shit, say, actually, the statistics show, blah, 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 you are incorrect. What is your problem with trans people? And don't make out like you don't have a problem with trans people, because you keep denigrating mermaids as well. And I cannot find any evidence that mermaids are as shoddy in any way, because it's this whole, they're medicalising children, 80% of which wouldn't want to be trans, which is based on that really flawed bit of research.
Yeah, but they're going to go after any target they can, so...
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, if the listeners enjoyed this, we're online.
Oh yes, sorry. You can find me on Facebook. Not a lot of, hardly any original content on Facebook, but occasional original content on Facebook.
But good shared unoriginal content.
Good unoriginal content. I like to think so. I like to pick and choose what I share. Don't like to bombard people with stuffs. Going to be starting. Well, we've recorded we recorded one episode, but the recording didn't come out very well. So once we finish here, I'm going to ask you for advice. Going to be starting a podcast with a friend of mine.
You have other podcasting friends? This is not allowed.
Well, she's not technically a podcasting friend yet. I don't think she can officially be a podcasting friend until we put out a podcast, right? It's just like there and recording doesn't actually count for anything.
I still don't like it.
I know, but unfortunately, the whole premise of the podcast is us getting stoned and talking about. We're gonna think up like 100 odd, really, really random, weird questions, and then we're just gonna get high and then like discuss the random questions.
Cool.
And the name of our podcast, which is a joke that started out in D&D, but we've decided since Kat fell so in love with it and then went and bought the domain name, that our podcast is going to be called Ham Circle.
Okay.
So we've decided to call our podcast. We were going to call it Two Stoned Girls, but now we decided to call it Ham Circle. So yeah, look out for Ham Circle, available on all podcast providers in probably about 6-8 months when I get round to editing it.
Well, when it comes out, I will definitely promote it. So keep your eyes open, listeners.
Thank you. I knew that there was a reason why I stayed friends with you. It was to tailcoat off your fame.
Yep. Well, if the listeners enjoyed this episode, we're online. We have a Facebook at www.facebook.com/Eccentric Earth, and our Twitter and Instagram is at eccentric_earth. We're on all major podcast providers and YouTube, so make sure you follow and subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. And if you want to get in contact for any reason, for questions, queries, comments, or even suggestions for future episodes, our email address is eccentricearth@outlook.com. Well, thank you for joining me for this episode that went on a bit more than I thought it would. I knew it's always a danger giving you a topic like this for where it's going to go at the end, but yeah, I had fun.
You should generally know that anything that you give me to talk about is going to run long, not short.
I know. Thank you for coming on this episode, and I'm sure we'll have you on again in the future.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Amy. And yeah, I'll come back anytime.
Cool. Well, thank you everyone for listening. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.